Are you making money on this operation?
No. So, not yet. People might say, hey, that's a lot of money, $250,000. But we went through over $1 million.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. OceanGate was founded 14 years ago in 2009. 14 years is a heck of a long time to be in business without being profitable. You would never think it from the CEO's constant hyperbole and salesman bluster that his business was actually a lame duck, a dead dog, rather than a cash cow jumping over the moon. Certainly that was the impression you got from him directly. If you think about it, there seems to be no area more than the money narrative where Stockton Rush seemed to be a victim of his own magical thinking. He seemed to believe he had hit the jackpot, and it was only a matter of time, only one more roll of the dice, before the high rollers came stampeding his way, and with them, big winnings rolling in. In this episode, if you haven't guessed it so far, we're going to be talking at last about the fishy financial narrative. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Just once again, just an appeal to the 75% of you who are watching but are not subscribed to please subscribe. You're welcome to unsubscribe once we complete the coverage of this particular topic. I'm also going to be doing an episode on Oppenheimer, so look out for that as well. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. So the first section is bad timing. In an article published in GeekWire the day before Halloween in 2019, Stockton Rush was talking his characteristic big game, which is to say he was making boastful, unrealistic claims, and I guess to put it mildly, he was exaggerating. Quoting from the article, Everest, Washington-based OceanGate says it'll build not just one but two deep-sea submersibles capable of taking crews as far down as, get this, 6,000 meters, 3.7 miles beneath the ocean surface, into a zone of perpetual darkness, end quote. That's not a typo. You read that right, and that was what he was saying in 4 years ago in 2019, that they were going to go almost 2 miles, well, about a mile deeper than Titanic. So let's do a quick recap here. In 2019, you have a submersible that can go down to less than 4,000 meters in the Bahamas. It hasn't even gone down to the Titanic yet, and is already promising a similar sub that will go down a third deeper than Titanic. According to the article, quote, the vessels will take advantage of the same carbon fiber and titanium design that was pioneered for OceanGate's Titan submersible, which was built for exploration of the Titanic shipwreck, nearly 4,000 meters down, or 2.4 miles down.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Are you out of your fucking mind?
At the time of writing the article, the reporter failed to note, unless I missed it, that the Titan hadn't yet dived to the Titanic. It is, I suppose, inferred in this paragraph. Quote, interest in Titanic trips, which are due to begin next summer, that was supposed to be 2020, is one of the factors behind the planned expansion of OceanGate's fleet, end quote. Well, the timing could not have been worse for Titan, though perhaps it was a blessing for the public at large. 2020, the year of OceanGate's big reveal, was the year COVID struck. But anyway, going back to the article, increasing demand for Titanic missions, deep-sea research, and environmental supervision of deep-sea mining have further reinforced the business case for adding to our dive capacity. Well, those brave words are from the CEO himself. It was something he said in a news release at the time. Now, it sounds like everything was going swimmingly for OceanGate in 2019, but he's speaking about the future as though it's the past tense. The fact that one particular tourist, Renato Rojas, ended up diving 4 times on Titan, 3 times unsuccessfully, the fourth where a thruster was wired, I think, the wrong way, but they figured it out. This reveals something perhaps not entirely truthful about Stockton's claim about increasing demand. I mean, if you're able to give one particular tourist 4 shots, it's certainly not a bumper-to-bumper season you're having. And clearly COVID did do its damage through demand destruction over 2 seasons, at least one of which OceanGate scrambled to deliver on the remnants of a season. And that brings us to the money mirror. OceanGate's now scrubbed social media provides a critical porthole into the company's efforts to sell tickets. Long before they had actually successfully tested their craft to 4,000 meters, they were already promoting it and selling tickets to the Titanic. Here's a promo from 2017. A month later, they were already engaging with the media, Forbes, The Washington Post, TechCrunch, about their 2018 season. Did the 2018 season materialize? I mean, in 2018, you were essentially 9 years, effectively almost 2/3 into the company's total lifespan, and they were still posting of early setbacks. In May 2018, there was a significant one. Just prior to the commencement of the summer season, OceanGate blamed the weather, basically a lightning strike, before scrubbing that season and announcing plans to go back to the drawing board. A year later, they were back with a bang, Stockton full of bluster, bragging about setting a new world record. One of his passengers, Carl Stanley, would later say that this record dive filled him with trepidation as he heard what sounded like gunshots over his head as the carbon fiber hull split and delaminated during the dive.
What did you experience during that dive?
Well, I would say every 3 to 4 minutes there was loud gunshot-like noises. It's a heck of a sound to hear when you're that far under the ocean.
One imagines from this point onwards, OceanGate were ready and rearing to go. A month later, OceanGate were once again advertising their readiness to start busing tourists down to the Titanic. The time had finally come on the 10-year anniversary to cash in their chips. They were going to be rich. I wish I could present OceanGate's accounting records or even a record of the number of seasons they completed, along with the number of paying passengers per mission. Alas, all we have to go on is a slew of anecdotes from passengers that were either promised a dive to the Titanic and ended up with a booby prize, or they went down and they got lost, or the Titan failed to launch off the platform, or bad weather blew one weather window closed after the next, or prospective clients were offered a massive discount but then turned Stockton Rush down anyway. While we may not know the finer details, what's clear is that certainly during this season and in 2022, there seem to be more scrub missions than successful ones. Take 2023, this year. How many times did the Titan actually get to the Titanic this year? Answer, 0. In 2022, we know David Pogue's mission was written off, but the one after apparently went off, well, with a hitch, but they made it to the wreck. Reading between the lines, it's clear that even as late as this year, what the Titanic expeditions amounted to was often much ado about nothing. A lot of hot air slowly fizzling out of a flat tire, lots of R&D, lots of effort marketing and pitching, lots of effort traveling to Vegas, traveling to Florida, even across the pond to London's King's Cross station. He'd charter big ships and then he'd end up having to give tickets away to reporters and even YouTubers. Sometimes cameramen thumbed their noses at these freebies as well. People just said, no thank you. I don't know for sure whether 2019 was a total washout, but it seems they only got the vehicle tested and ready at the last moment, according to the dates, the timestamps on their social media. And so if they wanted to dive in the North Atlantic, they still had to get from the Bahamas to Newfoundland. I don't know if they'd test one sub and dive with another, but simply getting to Newfoundland from the Bahamas was over 2,300 miles by sea. If they were taking the same craft to Newfoundland, this trip alone would eat substantially into their piggy bank. Now, from GeekWire's reporting in 2019, that's October 2019, it seemed like 2019 was a washout as well. Quote, The Titanic trips are due to begin next summer, meaning 2020. But the next year was COVID, which meant OceanGate was sort of stuck doing virtual visits to the Titanic, and then also marketing, more selling, more promoting. And that brings us to the next section, easy money. After making yet another commitment to get below the surface in 2020, when that didn't happen, OceanGate rewrote the narrative, once again using GeekWire in January 2020 as a bullhorn. Quoting from the article, OceanGate says it has raised $18.1 million in new investment, laying the financial groundwork for an expansion of its fleet of deep-sea submersibles and setting the stage for dives to the 108-year-old Titanic shipwreck in 2021. The funding round was reported in documents filed today with the Securities and Exchange Commission. OceanGate CEO and founder Stockton Rush said the figure reported in the documents is $19.3 million and it would be amended to reflect the actual size of the round. He declined to identify the investors other than to say that it was 100% insiders. A very real question surrounding this whole story of finances is, where did this money come from? If so much millions were being flushed down the toilet each year over a decade, where was this money coming from? Well, think about it. Rush was a venture capitalist, and besides inheriting millions, he had millionaires in his networks and friendship circles. Whatever the source, it seems strange that he was given this boost, almost $20 million, not after taking his first tourist to Titanic, but before. Also, now that COVID had scuppered the 2020 season, suddenly the year has been recast as a rebuilding year. You know, bear in mind, it's totally different to the article that was written just 3 months earlier. So going to the article, quote, "This is shaping up as a rebuilding year for the nearly 11-year-old venture based in Everett, Washington. The main task on the agenda is to build 2 new submersibles capable of diving as deep as 6,000 meters, 3.7 miles, which is more than a mile deeper than the part of the North Atlantic Ocean floor where the Titanic is resting."
Are you out of your fucking mind?
The article continues, OceanGate will take advantage of lessons learned during the construction of its carbon-hulled Titan submersible, which was originally built for Titanic journeys. Those words are literally in the article. OceanGate will take advantage of lessons learned.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I've quoted from this source before, but it bears repeating. Rush actually said that tests were conducted at the Deep Ocean Test Facility in Annapolis, Maryland, and that these tests revealed that the Titan's hull showed signs of cyclic fatigue. As a result, the hull's depth rating was reduced to 3,000 meters. In his own words, he said, it's not enough to get to Titanic. This was in 2020, just 3 years ago. But just 3 months earlier, he was telling the same publication that it was bombs away. Perhaps not the right expression, but everything was, all systems go for the next season. Now they're rebuilding subs, those going to the Titanic, and new mega turds capable of going even deeper. To its credit, GeekWire saw some of the woods for the trees. They said that meant that the Titanic trips, which had been planned at first for 2018, then 2019, then 2020, had to be put off until mid-2021. By that time, Rush expects the new submersibles to be ready to enter service. Well, do you think that was the case? He said mission specialists who have paid more than $100,000 each to participate in the Titanic expeditions were generally supportive but disappointed by the delay, end quote. But that's something else one notices. Ticket prices have now more than doubled from their original prices, and yet it's still not enough to make money. Why? Because the bottom line is their craft simply isn't doing a lot of dives. Certainly not a lot of successful dives. And now we're at 2021 in the timeline, this financial timeline, and with COVID in full swing, that is when OceanGate brings out the big guns. PH Nargile makes his first appearance in OceanGate social media. OceanGate tries to promote new records after yet another washed-out season. It seems, certainly based on the Instagram that you're looking at right now, I hope I've got it on screen, they only managed to scrabble together 3 crewmen, no tourists, for the successful dive to Titanic on or close to July 11, 2021. OceanGate Expeditions was valued at $66 million in 2022, according to some sources. On social media, 2022 appeared to be a better year than 2021 after a 13-year itch, and perhaps some of the festering finances were softened at least by the band-aid that was the tickets that already sold but, well, not quite delivered. Do you see what the bottom line is, though? The bottom line was that 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022, for various reasons, were all subpar performances by OceanGate's Titan submersible. Blame the weather, blame COVID, blame whatever you want, but a lot was riding on 2023. And that brings us to the final section, 2023. You can feel that the pressure was on: financial, ego, reputational, etc., etc. In the last few years, one has a sense that Stockton Rush could feel his fortunes were changing. After appearances in 2022 and 2023 on CNN, on CBS, on the BBC, and also on several fairly obscure Zoom calls and summits, such as with Teledyne and GeekWire and the Explorers Club, one has a feeling 14 years into the thing, OceanGate was finally ready to make a breakthrough. This was going to be the year. Like Rob Hall and Scott Fisher on Everest in 1996, one shouldn't simply see the disaster in isolation. One shouldn't simply look at what happened this year in dive number 5 in isolation, but think about all of the frustrations of denied summits in the Everest sense, all of the denied summits leading up to 1996. You know, Stockton Rush had more than his fair share. And so in 2023, when one mission after another was foiled by glitches, fog, waves, and ghosts in the water, like ghost nets, one can see that his patience had to have been wearing thin. By 2023, P.H. Nargile had been on board with OceanGate for 2 years. What had he witnessed? What did the record look like from his perspective? And it's in this context that 3 clients unwittingly put up their hands. The Suleimans, who Stockton and his wife had gone all the way to London to convince, to sell them tickets in person, and now the family are on board, even Mr. Suleiman's there. And then their top-tier client thus far, Hamish Harding. Hamish Harding is the biggest deal to come OceanGate's way since Nargile. So think about it. The temptation, safety-wise, to scrub was there, but it was more than outweighed by the enticement to finally get into the damn sub, roll the dice, and cash in 3 big, much-needed meal tickets. It was a business, and now it was time to get down to business. Besides rivals, there were investors looking on as well, and then there was also all the big talk, the social media, the interviews. And so now what was needed now was the proof of the pudding. On top of that, Hamish had already posted on Instagram that the mission was go. How would it look if Stockton turned around now and said, well, we're not going? There is another aspect to the finances that I'm going to deal with in a separate episode, which is, why was Titan such a hard sell? And I'm going to ask you the question in that episode, if you had the money, is this something you would want to do? And then we're going to just think in practical terms what it would be like, what it was like, simply just going down to see the Titanic. After that, I want to follow that episode up by taking you back to the surface of the sea and back in time to what happened on the night that Titanic sank, and how just flicking a switch and changing the psychology, how that could have saved many, many lives. And so there's quite a lot of good content to look forward to. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.